I had a aha moment this morning, and it was about Bitcoin, and I want to explain to you what it's all about. I've drawn a chart here, and I want to draw your attention to this chart. Okay, here's the chart. Now, I got a cursor on here, it's black cursor, and you see I underlined available liquidity. This is basically all of your fiat currencies, primarily the dollar, that are sloshing around. They're like water. And this is why I drew a tank. And this tank is full of water, almost like a swimming pool. It's an open top tank. And that's open top. There's no top to the tank, as you can see. And that shows that liquidity, or that liquefied, like cash and sort of thing, you know, it's a money that they can move through the system, or digital money that's available that they can spend on different things or whatever. You know, that's the available liquidity that's in the system. And you would be surprised, it's really not that much actual available liquidity. And the reason why is an awful lot of liquidity is like stored in the banking system. That's what I got written down here, see, banks. And these are the smaller banks, you know, or medium-sized banks. You know, these ones here, and they represent where most of the people have their savings. So your savings are locked in these tanks. You notice that the top is closed. It's basically locked because you've got your money put away and stored away, and you're not really spending it. It's just sitting there in the bank, idle. So there's a lot of stored liquidity there in these banks, in these tanks. See, because it's like locked in tanks. So the banks are like tanks that's locking up your liquidity. So that's where your liquidity is, in these banking systems. And up here, this is the larger banks, you know, and world banks and all the banks. These are all the banks in the world, stored liquidity in the banking system. And here's the available liquidity that's sloshing around that they're using. And so what we have over here, we have the liquidity that's tied up in bonds, in the bond market. And you see it's a lot of liquidity. Probably a voluminous amount of liquidity. And also we have here the amount of liquidity that's tied up in stocks, you know, this orange colored liquidity. I drew it as orange liquid, maybe like Gatorade, you know. And this is like the water, like the liquidity. So now you understand what it is. Now this red liquid here in this great big tank, enormous tank, but it's almost empty. You know, just a little bit of liquidity sloshing around in the system that's been invested in this tank. This represents, this red liquidity, it looks like blood, represents the liquidity that's tied up in the crypto system. People have invested in Bitcoin and invested in Litecoin and all these other cryptocurrencies. It represents over $100 billion. Now, if we looked at that 6 months or a year ago, we wouldn't even have seen the liquidity down in the bottom of the tank. It would have been almost invisible, like no liquidity, an empty tank almost. It would have been so little in the tank, like one cup full of liquid in the tank, nothing there. But now it's got to the point where there's a little bit of liquidity sloshing around in the bottom of the tank. But the tank's empty. It's ready to hold liquidity. Now, every time somebody goes out and they purchase Bitcoin or any of these other cryptocurrencies, what's actually happening is they are taking their money out of this available liquidity tank and they're dumping it into this Bitcoin tank, and it becomes red. It changes color from the normal liquidity color to red. And it's like a vote for Bitcoin and a vote against the cryptocurrency, against the fiat currencies. So what's happening is it's also a deleveraging of them and a leveraging of the cryptos. Now, it's just got to the point now, at 100 billion or more than 100 billion, that it's going to start to actually have a small effect on deleveraging the liquidity, this available liquidity that's in the tank. And it's only a small effect. Not that noticeable, but a small effect on deleveraging this. And leveraging up the cryptocurrencies, which is a noticeable effect of how much it's deleveraging up the cryptocurrencies. This effect has to stop. Now, why I say has to stop It needs to stop. Because if this effect starts to get more profound, more deleveraging of the available liquidity in the system, right? Which all of this liquidity in the system is accounted for. Because the people that deal in this, the people that are actually out there and they deal in this on a day-to-day basis, they would know what I'm talking about right now. They would already be able to see the difference that the cryptocurrencies have actually sucked out of the system. But they're not going to tell you. They're going to stay quiet on it. But they know how much money is, this available liquidity is floating around in the system on a day-to-day basis. They chart it. They've got it figured out almost to the cupful how much is there. And they can already see how much has went into crypto and the effect that it's has. This has to stop. Because if it becomes noticeable, all of a sudden you're going to see the cryptos start to going up, right? Up and up and up. And you're going to see the other ones being deleveraged going down, down, down. Right? People say, well, there's nothing behind crypto. It's like thin air. It's like Bitcoin. There's nothing behind it. What is it? And everything. But what you don't realize is this available liquidity here is exactly the same way. There's nothing behind any of it either. Right? And if one starts to leverage and the other one starts to deleverage, what happens is all of these people start to sit up and take notice, and they start to say to themselves, hey, we want some of that action. Greed starts to take a hold. And that just increases the speed that one leverages and the other one deleverages. This Bitcoin, each individual Bitcoin, is 99 million monetary units. It's like a monetary black hole that could quite literally suck up all of the world's liquidity. All of it. The stocks and bonds liquidity, the over here, all the orange liquidity, it can suck all of it up. It's a big enough tank to hold all of the money in the banking system and all of the available liquidity. Just in one coin alone. Just Bitcoin could hold all of that. And once they get it scaled so that it can make transactions, I mean right now, even right now at 1 megabyte, Bitcoins is pretty much covering the transactions. I mean, there's a few complaints, but most people get their transaction, it goes through. Just at 1 megabyte. Now, in a few months, they're going to scale it to 2 megabytes, and then the Lightning Network's going to come in and upscale it tremendously. And that's just Bitcoin. What about the new Bitcoin, BCC? It's already at 8 megabytes. And the scaling issue's pretty much been solved with that. And if that can't all cover it, then Litecoin can cover all the rest. I mean, let's face it, or any of the other altcoins, like Ethereum or so on and so forth. So all of the world's liquidity have no problem fitting in this tank. Like, picture it like a tank. The tank is ready. It's a beautiful stainless steel tank. It's brand new, and it's ready to hold all of the liquidity of the whole world. This needs to stop. If this doesn't stop, seriously, what's going to happen is it's going to start, the effect's going to start to increase faster and faster. And I had this moment where I suddenly realized, hey, this is going to deleverage the entire system. It's at 100 billion right now. On any given day within the system, this available liquidity is not as much as you would think. It's sloshing around because it's sloshing back and forth. It's exchanging hands. Back and forth, the available liquidity. It's in the trillions, but it's probably not, I'm going to guess, maybe 1 trillion or 2 trillion sloshing around in the system there, this available liquidity. But when you think about what 1 trillion is, it's 1,000 billion. So picture that as 10 times what Bitcoin is. If Bitcoin grows 10 times, it'll already have 1 trillion. But you don't have to take 1 trillion out of this available liquidity to have a noticeable drop in the available liquidity. And every time they take some of this available liquidity out and they dump it into this other tank over here, into this crypto tank, the red water goes up higher and higher. And it doesn't seem to make its way back. It just seems to be on this charge, ever since it started, of exponential growth. Never-ending exponential growth. And I'm starting to see where this is going and what it could lead to if it grows much bigger. Because it's at 100 billion right now. The next step is 200 billion, and the next step is 1 trillion. And once it hits 1 trillion, it's all over, man. It'll have enough of the available liquidity in there where everybody will be able to notice, and the Bitcoin will be going up one way, and the other will be going down in the other direction. This whole thing is a monetary black hole. At what point do we pass, see, in a real black hole, there's something called the event horizon. And what the event horizon is, it's a spot where if you get too close to the black hole and you pass the event horizon, there's no turning back. The black hole, its gravity has got you, and it's going to suck you in when you pass the event horizon. And at what point do we pass the event horizon on this? And this monetary black hole, which is what Bitcoin is, sucks us in. Sucks in all of the world's liquidity. And goes burp. It's just like that big plant that eats people. You know, feed me, feed me. You know? And it gulps you down, and it goes burp. Once it got you. And this is the same thing. This Bitcoin. And I come to that sudden realization this morning that this thing could go out of control, and perhaps we've already passed the event horizon. You can't put this thing back in the box again. And greed's going to feed it. And all these guys out there who are like, oh, it's like the tulip bulb thing, you know, and they say, oh, I'm not going to have anything to do with that and all this kind of stuff. Well, they're watching all their monies. After 6 months from now, they'll watch all their buddies making money, and they're not. Because they're holdouts. They're like, I'm never going to buy Bitcoin. I'm never. And, right? So right now, that's fine. Because they're saying to themselves, it's going to crash, it's going to crash. So maybe it will have a little crash. Right? In the meantime, in the next 6 months, say in a month or two, it has a little crash. But then it recovers. And it always ends up going higher than it was before. So say 6 months from now, it's doubled in price. So when the crash occurs, say the crash occurs 3 months from now, and they're all like gleeful, I'm glad I didn't buy that stuff. You look, it's crashed, you know. But then it recovers, and then it heads up, and it doubles its price again 6 months from now. And all of a sudden, they're saying, I could have doubled my money in the last 6 months if I. And even if they're a holdout, how long will they hold out in the end after it doubles and doubles again and doubles again? I mean, sooner or later, even the guys that are the most ardent will start to soften. And they'll say, oh, what I could have had if I had have just listened back 4 years ago when they told me to buy the stuff, and I was out there preaching how awful it is and how horrible it is and how it's worthless and everything else. You know? I could have been a millionaire now, they'll say. You know? And honest to gosh, look at this stuff. If you're invested in the other alternatives, I mean, what's the alternative? Now, I'm going to tell you something about the Bitcoin and stuff. And all the cryptocurrencies. You know, I've been mining them for a while and stuff, and going back, and I've mined a lot of different ones. Some of them that have died and stuff. Some of these currencies. I even mined. There was one called what was it called? It was about that the rap singer. I can't think of his name right now offhand. They had a cryptocurrency for the rap singer. This was about, and I mined some of them. This was about 2 or 3 years ago. What was the name? I can't think of his name right now, offhand. At any rate, I mined some of those even. I mined, in the middle of the night, one night, I mined Sex Coin, I think it was, or Booby Coin. I mined all these crazy different cryptocurrencies. You know, I mined them, you know, and everything. And I've used them all, and they all work very similar, how they work. And what I've noticed about them is you can send a transaction out to a wallet that you own, right? And you can leave that money float around in the internet there for months, years. Open your wallet up and sync your wallet up with the internet, and the money will appear into your wallet. Bing! You know, it's almost like magic. It's the strangest thing you've ever seen, you know. And a transaction always goes through. I've never, ever had a transaction fail if you get the wallet address correct. If you check the first 3 letters and the last 3 letters of your wallet address and make sure they're correct, and you send a transaction, I've never had a transaction fail, ever. They always land home. They go into the internet, they fly off into the internet, and they always find their way home to their home address. And it's almost like magic. And it's much more reliable than anything else you've ever seen in your life. You know? This is a new invention, and it's an invention that really works well. It really does. And seriously, you can send money halfway around the earth almost instantaneously. Without any third party. See, all of your transactions right now, your Visa, whatever, has a third party, and that third party can foul you up. You don't understand how many ways that third party can foul you up. If their own system's not working right, and they can't verify the transaction, then you just got to wait. You ain't going to make your transaction, simply put. Where this, you don't have the third party to worry about. As long as the internet's up and running, you're up and running. You're your own bank, so you're the guy to rely upon. So you can send a transaction anytime you want. You don't have to worry about the bank being open, closed, whether their computer's turned on or off. It doesn't matter. There's no third party. This is so much better. And it makes all the banks superfluous. Now there's another point. Not only can it suck up all the world's liquidity, which is huge, because that means if it deleverages all the other money and it leverages itself, it means all the worth of the world will go into it, and all the worth of the world that's in the other available liquidity will be gone. Worthless. But this is also going to make all the banks superfluous. Now, I mean, this is just amazing if this thing continues to grow. And I don't see any sign of it going away. What would make it go away? Even if some country were to turn on it, say the biggest country were to turn on it and say, we're outlawing it, it would just go underground. The only thing that can ever make this thing go away right now is all of the countries on Earth would have to make a unified effort. And when have all the countries on Earth been unified on anything? Heck, they're just about ready to go to war right now. Besides be unified, you know? So I don't see this thing going away. And if it doesn't go away, it's only going to continue to exponentially grow until it destroys the whole world's financial system and the whole world's banking system and makes itself... I'll tell you what it's like. There's a bird in Africa, I think he's in Africa anyway, called a cuckoo bird, you know? And so I'll tell you what he does. The parents of a bird species will come along, say, and they'll make a nice nest, and they put all this work into a beautiful nest and everything else, you know. And then they come along and lay their eggs in the nest, you know, and they sit on the eggs and everything else. Well, the cuckoo bird sneaks in. He lays an egg in the nest, you know. And they sit on that egg and everything, and the cuckoo bird leaves. He puts his child up for adoption in the nest when he lays the egg, and he flies away. And the birds, they don't know that it's a different egg in the nest. They just think it's the same egg that they laid, you know, and they sit on it just like they sit on their own eggs. And so one day comes and all the eggs hatch in the nest, you know, including the cuckoo bird's egg, and it hatches too, and they take care and nurture this cuckoo bird just like their own babies. And he grows, this cuckoo bird grows, and he gets bigger and bigger and bigger slowly. And then what he does is, the cuckoo bird, he gets his back in underneath these other chicks, and he kind of squiddles himself down and gets his back in underneath them, and then he humps his rear end up in the air, and he knocks the other chick out of the nest, and the other chick falls down 100 feet or whatever. Doesn't even have wings yet, right? And he keeps doing that. until there's no other babies in the nest except him, and the parents keep coming back and feeding him. He gets rid of the other ones. That's what Bitcoin is slowly doing. It's a cuckoo bird. And unless you get rid of it, unless you stop it now, it is going to destroy the other currencies who aren't as good. They all require a third party for transactions. They're all moving down. They're all going to move down. And Bitcoin's going to move up. Bitcoin's going to move up. He's like the cuckoo bird. He's going to move up on them. He's using them. Every time somebody invests in Bitcoin, he's taking money from their liquidity and he's putting it into his own. He's leveraging himself up and he's deleveraging them down. Now, the effect is not that noticeable at first, but I can see the trend. The trend is, if this continues, soon the effect will be noticeable. It's hit 100 billion now. When it gets a little bit bigger, it's going to be absolutely noticeable within the system. And then I won't be the only guy out there talking about this at that point. Then they'll all notice it, and they'll all be talking about it. You know, I'm the first guy that's in there really getting in there and getting this news out there. But this is big news, because this is what's coming unless these cryptocurrencies are stopped. So listen, thank you guys for listening. Like and subscribe. And hey, this is really something. This is a... for me, this morning, it was like an aha. I see what's going on now. It's all becoming clear to me. Anyway, see you guys in the next episode. Bye.